Last year, U.S. Drug Enforcement agents seized more than 10,000 pounds of fentanyl powder, enough to kill every single American.
They have fed some of their victims, dead and alive, to tigers belonging to the Chapitos.
Have you ever fed any of your enemies to tigers?
It's a well-known fact that the Sinaloa Cartel is the biggest narcotics cartel in Mexico, with operations in thousands of cities around the world. The cartel has seen its fair share of ups and downs, but perhaps the biggest blow to this organization was the arrest of one of their strongest kingpins, El Chapo. Joaquín Guzmán, or El Chapo, was arrested in January 2016 and received a sentence in the United States in 2019. But does that indicate that the cartel is over? Not really. Despite their leader being missing from the ranks, the Sinaloa Cartel continues to be the largest cartel in Mexico, continuing their regular operations in narcotics dealings, kidnappings, murders, and battling local cartels for power over territories. But today's story isn't about El Chapo. It's about his sons, who have been successful in carrying out their father's legacy like champions. More so, the sons have achieved new levels of brutality by borrowing torture techniques from some of the wicked leaders of their cartel, including their father. They were never ones to show mercy to their victims. Ivan Archibaldo Guzmán Salazar, Jesus Alfredo Guzmán Salazar, Ovidio Guzmán Lopez, and Joaquín Guzmán Lopez are the sons of El Chapo. Other than their regular illicit activities, they made headlines due to a particularly brutal technique they used on some of their victims. They fed them to their pet tigers. Stay tuned as we uncover this story and much more about the sons of El Chapo. So how many children does El Chapo have? No one really knows. He had 4 wives and around 13 to 14 children, but the correct information is currently unknown. However, 4 of El Chapo's sons, also known as Los Chapitos or Little Chapos, have been in the limelight because of their direct involvement in the operations of the Sinaloa Cartel. They have filled their father's shoes after he was detained by law enforcement agencies in 2016.
Sons of the world's most notorious drug lord, the U.S. Justice Department says the so-called Chapitos took control of the Mexican Sinaloa drug cartel when their father El Chapo landed in prison.
Ivan Archibaldo Guzmán Salazar has always maintained a low profile, so much so that his actual birth date is unknown. The eldest of the brothers, he is next in line in succession and is currently leading the Sinaloa Cartel after his father's arrest in 2016. Prior to this, he had a strong presence on social media and posted lavish pictures depicting his carefree lifestyle, but he has stopped posting since 2016. Jesus Alfredo Guzmán Salazar has also followed the footsteps of his elder brother and entered the business when he was a teenager. He is notorious for taking part in many torture sessions with his brother and testing fentanyl on humans without their consent. Ovidio Guzmán Lopez is the brother that looks after and leads the fentanyl division within the cartel. He was recently captured by law enforcement and extradited to the U.S., where he awaits his fate. He is known to be the least successful in the family business. Joaquín Guzmán Lopez, the namesake of El Chapo, has always been out of the public eye. Not much is known about this Chapito, but he has fair share in the illegal family trade and brutalities inflicted upon thousands of innocents. The 4 brothers were groomed from a very early age and started their careers when they weren't even adults. The next generation is much smarter and more violent, making the Sinaloa Cartel more dangerous for the general public and the authorities. A source from Culiacán, Mexico, mentioned that the next generation of drug cartels were aware of their power and reach, and they engaged in unlawful activities without worrying about being punished. They are the new litter, smarter, but also more violent. They grew up around guns and killings, and it's showing, said the source. A cartel prince's life is much more than guns, battles, and narcotics. Their life is also millions of dollars, lavish properties, gunmen at the ready, and exotic animals as pets. A narcotics trafficker much lower in the ranks than the Chapitos showed off their wealth, saying they had millions of pesos in their accounts from the trade, and they live in a mansion.
Decidí comprarlo porque miré que era un lugar muy bueno para poder tener un negocio y pues lo miré, me gustó y ahorré para comprarlo.
They casually held tigers on the property as pets and mentioned that it was a sign of power.
Is this like a common thing for narcos?
Sí, es muy normal porque pues es una manera de mostrarle excentridad.
Despite their claims, recent investigations revealed that these pets were used for much more than just entertainment. The life of this narco is only a tiny glimpse of how the Chapitos live their life, surrounded by opulence. The world breathed a heavy sigh of relief when El Chapo was arrested in 2016. Everyone believed that the Sinaloa Cartel would probably collapse soon, but Los Chapitos were determined to carry on the legacy left behind by their father. Despite the absence of El Chapo, the sons ensured that the process ran smoothly and no harm was done to the trade. They facilitated mass production of methamphetamine and fentanyl to the existing count of narcotics in their business.
The Chapitos made sure nothing and no one stopped the proliferation of their fentanyl ring. Their U.S. officials now say the four sons only amplified El Chapo's brutality and used their force to fast-track an international network for a lab-created poison disguised in drugs.
The brothers used China as the starting point of the deadly manufacturing of fentanyl. From there, they smuggled it to the United States through Mexico. Several states have been badly affected by the mass smuggling, Chicago being one of the cities to take the biggest hit.
Chicago has long been a transportation hub and a significant market for the cartel.
Not only this, Los Chapitos always created the most potent batches of these narcotics, ensuring that the formula was 100% effective. They smuggled the substances to the U.S. by disguising them as prescription medicines, and the DEA had to go through much trouble to identify and confiscate them.
These are people who gave fentanyl to a man, watched him die, and then sent that same batch of fentanyl to the United States. They know that they are poisoning and killing Americans. They just don't care because they make billions of dollars doing it.
When U.S. authorities saw a record amount of narcotics being trafficked from Mexico in 2021, they put a $5 million bounty on Los Chapitos.
The U.S. government has put out a $5 million bounty on the sons of convicted drug lord Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán.
Fentanyl is a dangerous substance, and the slightest overdose can end up killing a person. Despite knowing the consequences, the newest generation of the Sinaloa Cartel continued to smuggle them into the United States. The country is awaiting a dark future if the trafficking isn't stopped soon. The cartels have never been known to be merciful to their victims, and Los Chapitos are no different from their ancestors. However, the inhuman tales of brutality is a recent phenomenon. With the birth of other rival gangs, cartels like the Sinaloa and CJNG are racing to become the most ruthless gang the world has ever seen. They often inflict so much pain on their victims that they cross all levels of humanity. Taking people's lives is cruel enough, but the cartels take it up a notch by playing with their victims first, possibly to exercise the unlawful power they have gained over hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Their stories of brutality are making the rounds in newspaper headlines regularly, instilling fear not only in the locals, but also the law enforcement officers who have taken a vow to contain them. The eldest of the four Chapitos, Ivan, owns a ranch in Navolato, Sinaloa, which is used as their torture chamber for anyone who dares to cross them. They take their victims there for interrogations and do unimaginable things to them.
In Mexico, they fed their enemies alive to tigers, electrocuted them, waterboarded them, and shot them at close range with a .50 caliber machine gun.
The Chapitos hitmen or sicarios conduct these acts, and the most violent ones are called ninis. They captured victims for information, and once received, they are disposed of. Sometimes it's a quick bullet to the head, but sometimes the unfortunate victims would be thrown into the cage of the Chapitos' beloved pets. The U.S. Justice Department further depicts how they tormented their victims while testing fentanyl on them. Victims sentenced to death by the cartels weren't given it too easily. Rather, the cartel members used narcotics on them until they met their tragic end.
In another instance, those defendants experimented on a woman they had been ordered to shoot. Instead, they injected her repeatedly with fentanyl until she overdosed and died.
But not only members of rival cartels or the general public, the Chapitos also showed their monstrosities against law enforcement officers and tormented them before taking their lives.
One of the officers was tortured for 2 hours before he was shot by Ivan Archivaldo Guzmán Salazar.
They used a corkscrew on the officer's muscles and poured hot chilies on the wound. Ivan then fired at him, which put him to rest. The streets of Mexico are often littered with body bags. many of which are dumped there by the Sinaloa Cartel members. The locals know what's inside those bags, but they're so frightened of the cartels that no one dares raise a voice against the ongoing brutality. You go to school with your son in the morning. You both see the bags, and you both know there are bodies in them. Nobody says anything. Everyone knows what they mean. The message by the cartels is clear. When anyone tries to overstep them, they pay the price with their lives. The law enforcement officers are doing everything in their power to fight back against the Sinaloa Cartel. They're battling organized crime, attacks, kidnappings, and narcotics smuggling on a day-to-day basis. The United States is the primary victim of the cartel's narcotics trafficking, putting them on high alert. They're also helping Mexican authorities capture and sentence the traffickers. The United States Department of Justice marked the Chapitos for their mass production and smuggling of narcotics within the borders. They have managed to inject the substance into every state of the country, and the U.S. has never seen a substance problem like this ever before.
The Chapitos pioneered the manufacture and trafficking of the deadliest drug our country has ever faced. And they are responsible for the massive influx of fentanyl into the United States.
And this is exactly why restraining the Sinaloa Cartel has become very important for the authorities. In October 2019, Mexican law enforcement managed to arrest Ovidio Guzmán Lopez from Culiacán. The cartel retaliated violently. They raised roadblocks, burned vehicles, and started firing at the law enforcement to free him.
Back in 2019, an attempt to arrest Guzmán was thwarted when cartel soldiers wreaked havoc and destruction in Culiacán. Authorities released him to stop the violence.
Cartel foot soldiers set up roadblocks and waged war on the police as they tried to free their boss.
After they ravaged the streets of Culiacán, wounded or took the lives of many, law enforcement officers were forced to release him as they feared irreparable damage to the cities and the locals. This was a risk they weren't willing to take. However, in 2023, law enforcement agencies got the golden chance again. They captured Ovidio Guzmán once again from Culiacán in January. The cartel members repeated the violence they'd unleashed upon the country in 2019. The city of Culiacán issued a state of emergency and asked citizens to stay at home at all costs. Don't leave home. The safety of Culiacán citizens is the most important, they stated in a mandate. It was reported that 29 people died as the Sinaloa Cartel members clashed with law enforcement agencies during the unrest.
The clashes have left 10 members of the security forces and 19 from the cartel dead.
Today's actions could be a violent show of power by the Sinaloa Cartel faction led by El Chapo's son.
The Sinaloa Cartel members left no stones unturned to free Ovidio. They even fired at the airplane which was carrying him to Mexico City to prevent his departure from their territory.
The son of Mexican drug lord El Chapo, extradited to the U.S. on drug trafficking charges.
El Chapo's son Ovidio put on a private plane with a one-way ticket to Chicago. This 33-year-old son of the Sinaloa Cartel kingpin tonight at the federal lockup in downtown Chicago after a court arraignment on drug trafficking and money laundering.
He was safely extradited to the U.S. and appeared in court to face the charges against him. However, Ovidio Guzmán has pleaded not guilty to the charges brought against him and will go through the required legal battle in an attempt to clear his name. No one knows where the other 3 children of El Chapo are. As Ovidio has safely reached the United States, people are assuming that he will be released only after doing his full sentence. However, his father has previously escaped prison, and it would not come as a surprise if Ovidio tried the same. The Sinaloa Cartel continues to operate in Mexico, with the 3 remaining brothers pulling the strings from the shadows. Nothing extraordinary has taken place yet, but this could very well be the calm before a dangerous storm that sweeps across the country. What do you think lies in store for the sons of El Chapo? Do you believe they can outshine their father in trade and brutality? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video to show your support, subscribe to our channel, and press the bell for notifications of future uploads. See you soon with the next exciting story.